Record to this computer. This is amazing. Here we go. This is our first Former Athlete Society Masterclass. I want to welcome you here. If you are just tuning in, you've jumped into the community, a couple new members throughout this week. I just wanted to remind you, every month we do a bigger deep dive into things related to your performance, into your training, into your lifestyle, health style, post-collegiate career. And this is no exception of it. This is what we're discussing today. I'm going to get into a few things I think I've shared with previous teams that are really important, and I'm excited to share them with you. And so I know that this masterclass will be a really good one, a really great one. And I'm excited that you're here, and I'm excited that you're watching this on demand here in our Former Athlete Society. Now, a couple housekeeping things real quick. If I'm looking over here, my eyes peer off, it's because I have three different screens in front of me right now. I have one that's recording. I have my presentation screen. I have a secondary screen. So if I'm just looking off, that's the case. I'm not looking, there's not a crowd, a live audience or anything around here. So that is that. Secondly, today might go a little bit shorter, just logistically speaking, right? The more audience participation in these master classes, the more that we will stretch this thing out 60 some minutes long. But I'm slated for about 25 minutes today for this deeper dive into one singular topic. And that's what I want to discuss today. And it's a topic that I've shared with, like I said earlier in the intro of this, with many teams before. And we are no exception with what I'm going to share now. So I'm just going to jump into it. I am sharing my screen, and then we're going to begin our presentation. So let's see how this pops up as it's loading. Perfect. Okay, so we have this live now. So I want to jump into this. This is a topic that's really, really important. When we start talking about mentality, or we start talking about applied sport psychology, this is something that dictates whether or not we will have success either in the Former Athlete Society, or if you are just pursuing anything else, and that is your habits. So time and time again, you've heard me talk on this median about how our habits define our character, our disciplines, our behaviors. All of those things will go into developing or cultivating championship level performance. You know this as a former athlete, you know this as an athlete. However, so often we get really talented people that come into either our organization or our sports teams, and they're super talented, but their talent has often made up for shortcomings in the habits and disciplines and behaviors that they have. So this lesson, this deeper dive, this masterclass is all about habit formation. Now, there is no better person to talk about developing habits than where I'm going to go next. So James Clear, he is an author, he's a writer, he's a speaker. He's talked extensively about habits, decision-making, and continuous improvement. So he has a very, very popular book out there called Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad habits. And that was, I think, published in 2016. And it's a New York Times bestseller list. It's often something I refer to or go back to and recommend to the athletes that I work with. But in this, I'm going to share some of the key takeaways from this book and how we can use this book, how we can use the lessons in it to really develop some better habits, right? Those performance habits that are so necessary when we are trying to either establish a new routine, new habits, new behaviors in our post-collegiate, post-NCAA career life that we're now living in this professional world. So this is the cover of the book. Like I said, Atomic Habits by James Clear, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. And I just want to go through sort of not chapter by chapter. Sorry, my cough is still very much present. I'm still getting over this cold. If you've listened to the last two, the Q&A question and answer session from Thursday or the accountability call on Tuesday, you could definitely know I was terribly sick. So I'm going to kind of work through some tidbits of this book and what I've shared with athletes before, and I'm sharing them live with us now. But there is actually some really powerful mental, I guess, mindset changes that happen when we actually establish and stick to really small habits from a sort of a momentum building aspect. So in this, the power of tiny habits, small changes compound over time. So if we can focus on getting 1% better every day, right? That is a huge key for your post-collegiate lifestyle. As you transition from your playing days into your professional days, having that 1% mindset of continuous improvement doesn't have to be gigantic leaps and bounds and monumental changes each week, but 1% better over time compounds massively. So in it, a lot of the characteristic of this book or overarching principle is that success isn't a massive leap. It's just consistent, tiny little steps along the way. So I want to question you. I want to ask you, if you were to improve by 1% every day for an entire year, where would that take you? Where would that take you on your conditioning? Where would that take you on your nutrition? Where would that take you if you made 1% changes in your health style, in your lifestyle, in your conditioning, in your strengthening, in your every performance aspect, right? And I could tell you that it's going to take you gigantic placements. You're going to 37x times better improvement because of that compounding over 365 days. What's kind of crazy to me is that's the compounding nature of continuous improvement. But if you got 1% worse every day, really you just sort of go from 1% to what your baseline is almost to zero. So 1% worse every day, not really terrible. 1% better every day, and you're 37 times better than what you would start at. If I could say that you would be 37 times stronger every day if you could just get 1% stronger, if you could do that over a course of a year, at the end of it, you'd be 37 times stronger than what you were, right? That would be ridiculous. Like you would be amazed with that, or 37-time improvement in your body composition, in your physique, in your performance, in your sprinting, in your running, in your endurance, and whatever it might be. Those are gigantic compounds, performance benefits, increases, just by simply showing up every day and trying to get 1% better. Another really powerful piece to what I think this former athlete society can help bridge and be a part of your routine is that he ends up talking about your identity shapes your behavior. So you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So if you want to focus on who you want, you want to focus on who you want to become, not just what you want to achieve. So don't think of yourself as, I want to run a marathon. Think of yourself as, I'm a marathon runner. Think of if you want to change your body composition, let's say, and this is a wild jump, but like, I really want to get leaner and I want to have a defined six pack. Like, you should be not thinking about those outcomes, but thinking, I'm the type of person that's going to have an 8-pack. I'm the type of person that's going to have ripped muscular. I'm the type of person that would take my shirt off at the beach and walk around. Like, those are the things. You need to focus on who you want to become, not just who you want to or what you want to achieve. So the question I ask you right now, as you're starting to listen to this, what would the best version of me do right now, today, at this very moment? Right? I often say to some of the basketball athletes that I work with, is like, what would Kobe do? What would Kobe do? Right? And it shifts this perspective of what would the best version of yourself want to do? And that is identifying and visualizing what the world's greatest would do. So often, if you take on the identity of Kobe, if you take on the identity of a person that runs marathons, if you take on the identity of a person that that takes their macros and their nutrition seriously, the outcomes will follow. And it's not always necessary that if you flip those, that it will happen that way. So James Clear ends up recommending focus on the why first, the bullseye of this circle, the identity piece, and that will help establish the how or the process, which will dictate the what or the outcome. So the why, the identity piece is super important in this, in that I'm the type of person that's going to wake up early and put on my running shoes and go for a 5-mile run in the morning because that's who I am. And if that's who I am, then how I choose to operate through my day will be dictated by my identity. And if that's the case, that what I do and how I do it and my processes throughout my day, that will lead to the desired outcomes or what I want to accomplish. So another thing in this book that is talked about quite frequently is the habit loop. So he ends up talking about this cue, the craving, the response, the reward as sort of a 4-part piece, cue leading to the craving, craving leading to the response, and the response leading to the reward, which only reinforces this looping of the next cue. So what triggers the habit, the cue? What triggers a particular habit from beginning or starting? And then what's the desire behind it? That's the craving piece. Like what, from a dopamine neuro standpoint, what's the desire behind doing that? The craving piece. What action do you take? What's the response, or what do you do when the trigger is cued? You have that neurological desire, the craving. What happens? What's the response? And then when that response actually occurs, what is the reward? What's the desired outcome? What's the outcome that actually reinforces that loop to continue to happen? So if it's a good thing, if this whole loop, if you will, let's say the habit loop, if it's a good habit, we want to make the cue very obvious. And if that's the case, like, like rather than sort of some ambiguous cue that we don't really know happens in the background, like subliminally, like we want to make that cue visual and very obvious that it's occurring. So i.e. setting your running shoes out in the morning right on your kitchen counter. So when you wake up and you walk out into your kitchen, the very first thing you see is your running shoes. Boom, cue. Now the craving, what's the desire behind it? Right? Like, how do we make that more attractive so that there's a positive craving of it? So that every time, maybe when you go and run, you're running and you're catching a sunset and it's beautiful and you love that aspect and it's always so great. And you think about that aspect. And every time you think about it, it brings you some joy. So now there's this craving of, like, you see the shoes, you're going to get this bliss of this running sunset that you get to see as you're coming up over this hill. And then the response, what's the action you take? And they would recommend, or James would recommend, make it easy. So remove barriers that prevent you from doing that action. So that might be something like you have your running shoes already out, you have your iPad charged or your phone charged so that you can listen to music. Your earbuds are sitting on the counter. You have time to do it. You have no reasons not to go run at that moment in time because you've reduced all the barriers to things. Your running clothes is already set out. You're ready to go. Your shoes are ready. So you've made it easy to actually execute on that response. And then the reward, make it satisfying, the outcome that reinforces it. So every single time you run, you're craving that sunset, you get that sunset, you get that dopamine hit, and it's self-looping, it's self-reinforcing, and it develops a good habit. And so something I want you to think about is the key to making good habits stick is make them obvious, make them attractive, make them easy, and make them satisfying. On a counter argument, if you want to break a bad habit, we need to try to make the cue invisible. We need to try to make the craving unattractive. We need to make the response more difficult by adding friction. And we need to make the reward unsatisfying, i.e., trying to remove the reward. So, chewing your nails. I'm just trying to think of an example off the top of my head, right? Like every single time I get anxious, I start to chew my nails. So maybe that's my cue. I'm starting to get anxious. How do I reduce anxiety so I don't begin to chew my nails? That might be a thought I'm starting to think about ahead of time. And then let's say I I see it, there's a cue, I'm thinking about chewing my nails. How do I make it unattractive? Well, maybe I put that sort of like taste nail polish on my nails. So every single time I want to chew on my nails or bite my nails, that I get that bad taste in my mouth, and I don't want to do that. What about make it difficult? Well, maybe I can make it difficult to chew my nails by A, that sort of taste nail polish, but B, maybe I trim my nails. So now it's just physically hard for me to actually chew my nails. Make it unsatisfying. Maybe every single time that I chew my nails, I have to do some type of like the reward is actually like biting and like getting it. I don't know. It's a nervous tick perhaps, but maybe I have to have some counter reinforcement there so that every single time I do it, I have to pay a friend $5 or something. And so now this loop, I've set friction in it. I've made the cue invisible. I made it the craving less attractive. I made it more difficult to do the response. And there's a reward, a negative reward. When I do it, I have to pay maybe a friend or something. So it starts to break this bad habit in that way. And why all of this really matters is because ultimately your habits shape your performance. So building habits around sleep, your nutrition, your recovery, focus, all of this seems really daunting. Sometimes establishing a new great habit is hard, and breaking a bad habit is even harder. But if we can break them down to the smallest subatomic habits that you'd have to commit in order to see progress. So I want to ask you right now, am I taking the first step in becoming who I want to be? If you're watching this, I think yes, because you're a part of the former athlete society. So you've already taken one step forward into doing that. Now, what's the next step you have to take? What's the third step you have to take? What's the next habit you have to do in order to move closer to the goals that you want to accomplish? So my thing for you is like if you wanted to be that marathon runner, and we have already used the analogy of setting your shoes out and building that great habit, but we need to start to think about breaking these big habits down to smaller subset habits. So maybe instead of a marathon, maybe it's two half marathons. Maybe it's a 10K. Maybe it's a series of 10Ks. Maybe it's a 5K. Maybe it's a fun run. Maybe it's going out and just jogging your neighborhood. Those are small little habits that you could build over time that will compound from a fun run to a 5K, to a 10K, to a half marathon, to a series of half marathons, to a marathon. And that's your big ultimate goal that you're trying to accomplish. So I love this. Success is the product of daily habits. It's not a once in a lifetime transformation. So that's kind of a part of what I want to leave you with. I have so much more that I could talk about on this topic as far as building and setting some habits in motion that allow you to really become the very best version of yourself. And I think what I'll do is I'll save that for our next masterclass, or I might even do like a mini masterclass so that I can share this material with you, right? In a longer format than this, because I could go on and I have about 15 more slides about this, but I'm going to stop this right here so that this is a very easily digestible video that you could watch while you're making coffee in the morning or things like that. But your habits will define who you are and what goals you accomplish. So if I can help you, or the former athlete society can help you in developing your good habits and breaking your bad habits, that's a win for you. And as we always already discussed, 1% better every single day leads to a 37x improvement over a course of a year. That's how compounding works. So my job as a coach for you here in the former athlete society is allow you to find those little moments where you can get 1% better. So I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited that you're watching this. I can't wait to help you. Leave some comments in this down below, or hit the community discussion boards and let me know what you think of this. Let me know what you're going to do to get 1% better today. What actions are you going to take to get 1% better today? And then share that in the discussion board so I can comment on it and we can get some engagement. Because again, right, our identity shapes what goals we accomplish, but also our community shapes what we accomplish. Because you move sort of like birds of a feather flock together, or whatever. Like, we move with each other. So if the entire community here is focused on getting better, there's a really good chance so are you. And so I want you to share what you're up to. I want you to share what your goal is and what you're doing to get 1% better today, and leave that in the discussion board so that we can all continue to improve on that. So thank you. I can't wait to jump into another masterclass with you again. And until next time, I'll see you.